when you're in Hollywood, the one thing you learn about if you're creative is you kind of got to find your niche. What's your thing? What is it about you that makes you different? Because until you find that, it's hard to get any producer to talk to you further. They all want to know, what's your thing? Well, I realized my thing could be creating an educational resource in auto transport for carriers to learn more about business.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
And you've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks. Today we've got Jay. He is all over the place. He's got a couple different shows and podcasts, all on the automotive industry. So I'm super excited to talk to him and figure out how he got into that niche and what is special that he's doing for his community. How are you doing today, Jay?
Hey, Ken, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Before we talk about your current business and what you're doing, can you give us a little bit of background on who you are and how you got into the automotive industry in the beginning?
Sure. All right. So my name is Jay Wertzberger, and I'm the founder and creator of ATI Auto Business. It's the car shipping business channel. It's a YouTube channel, and it's focused on connecting verticals in automotive, dealers, auctions, carriers, tech, services, etc. My beginnings in automotive are in the transportation space. I actually was working with carriers, car haulers, independent owner operators, and I was helping them find loads, stay loaded, and try to stay profitable. Trucking is a very difficult industry. So I wasn't in a truck. I was on the phone. I was a dispatcher. And a dispatcher is just an invisible industry in the back office that's always on the phone. Whether you're finding a load, booking a load, verifying a load, dealing with another problem, putting out fires, you're like a production assistant in automotive, which is interesting because production assistant leads into my former life, which is I worked in Hollywood, in filmmaking. I'm a media guy. I've always been a media guy. I have a degree in marketing, and those roots go back to the 90s.
Okay. So how do you go, this doesn't sound unsimilar to my story, from, film, entertainment industry to dispatching?
That's right. Well, and I get that question a lot, and it's literally the ARC question. To go back to the 90s, because, as we were talking about before, is that, we're on the move. Being creative is you're signing up for God knows what you're signing up for. And that's my story too. I mean, anybody that's creative, like really full on creative, you are not going to draw a straight line. Life is going to take a lot of turns. And as an entrepreneur also, you have to prepare for that. You're going to be pivoting a lot. You're going to deal with challenges you didn't see coming. And so for me, that's my story. So, after I finished college at Virginia Tech, got a degree in marketing, within a couple of years, I made my way to Hollywood, with a car and stuff. And I don't care what happens. I'm going to Hollywood. And so I actually got lucky. Somebody knew a associate producer, and I was a production assistant on a show within a week of getting there, which is really lucky.
Unless you're in craft.
Right. And so I thought, meaning like it was lucky to have a job, but it was the bottom of the barrel. I had a 2-week gig on a show in Vegas, but I only was going to be paid for the first week. I worked the second week totally for free in Vegas. And really, I think I lost most of my first week's revenue at the casino. So I basically worked for free. But that is when you're a production assistant in Hollywood, even today, although I don't know if do kids still go to Hollywood. Other than American Idol, I really don't know. I think they all
I'm
want to
sure
be
they do.
TikTokers, right?
I'm sure they still go to Hollywood. I think Hollywood is still going to be a hub, right? For that kind of activity.
Yeah.
The exposure is way easier to get nationwide now. I wouldn't say easier to get. It's still really hard.
Right.
But, they don't have to be next to people. But you know that if you're close to other creative people, then that creative mojo kind of spirals on its own. Or it's much easier.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I actually still felt like, I had a strange experience. So I worked in filmmaking for 4 years. And I mean, I went from production into the art department and, I'm creative, but I'm not a carpenter, which some people found out the hard way. And,
Right.
And so I was destined to try to get somewhere. And I was sitting outside I'd be locking up an area. I'm sitting by locking up as, you're on your walkie and you're like, you can't talk, you can't walk. And I'd be writing. And I started writing like TV episodes and putting them in script format and handing it to producers. Man, nobody cared. Nobody cared. Anyways, I got tired of all that. And after 4 years, I was burned out, worn out, didn't make any money. But I learned a lot. I learned a ton. I can watch any credits and I know what's in the credit other than like digital stuntmen, but yeah, I mean, like and so, which I still do. I still read credits looking for somebody I might have known 25 years ago.
It happens still sometimes, right?
No, it doesn't. There's nobody. I don't know anybody.
The entertainment industry is absolutely brutal. I got to Hollywood when I was 19 years old with the script in hand. I was going to be rich and famous.
Yeah.
And, I showed it to the producer and he's like, what's this shit? And I'm like, it's my script. It's going to be great. And he's like, yeah, 1,000 kids just got off the plane with a script in Hollywood, buddy. Good luck.
It's brutal. And I dropped to the ball too. Like I had met a producer that was like, oh, you like to read scripts, huh? Okay, well, great. Well, here's a couple crates and tell me tomorrow. I want a summary of all of them. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah. From the outside looking in, it looks all glamorous, but being in that industry when I was younger, and I guess I'm kind of back in that industry now, it is absolutely brutal. I think the cool thing now is that I get to do it on my terms. Right?
Yeah,
I don't have to. I mean, I'm part of a network now, so I have some restraints, but not many. Right? If I don't want to submit to the network, I can go right to YouTube. I can take content to TikTok. I can go all over the place. Right? So, which leads us to the next question. You go from auto dispatch to now is it 4 shows?
So, all right, cool. So real quickly, what happened, here's what's cool is when I quit Hollywood, I went to a trade show. Little did I know that my life would become trade shows. At this trade show in 1999, I met a company that was live webcasting. Little did I know live webcasting would also become a big part of the rest of my life. We don't call it live webcasting anymore, but at that company, we would charge 10 grand for what you can now do for $3.
Yep.
Okay. But I learned a lot. This is before YouTube and everything. So I've actually been in streaming for over 20 years. In fact, before YouTube, in the years before YouTube, I created a show called Streaming Media Dojo, which was my first big project. And I made a little bit of traction, talked to some advertisers, and that was the precursor to ATI Auto Business. So when I fell into dispatching, just as an odd job in between media gigs, it was just supposed to be a part-time thing. It opened up a world of trucking where I learned this, when you're in Hollywood, the one thing you learn about if you're creative is you kind of got to find your niche. What's your thing? What is it about you that makes you different? Because until you find that, it's hard to get any producer to talk to you further. They all want to know, what's your thing? Well, I realized my thing could be creating an educational resource in auto transport for carriers, for carriers to learn more about business. Because what I learned on the phone, and there's a couple guys right now that have just clicked off and they're like, I'm not going to watch. He's dead wrong. And yet, what I learned when I was on the phone with a lot of these carriers is they're so busy just getting through the day, trucking, loading, unloading, trying to get paid, trying to find a load. There's no ability for long-term forecasting and growth or keeping up with all the changes in the news of what's going on. And again, a carrier might say, I don't need to know that. I just need to get another load. True. But you need to know where you're headed as a business. And I know I might sound like a life coach at this point. I'm not a life coach. We got a lot of life coaches. I'm not in that arena.
Right.
But what I am is I'm a business resource. And to prove that, I decided I'm going to find out, okay, what do the owner operators think they need to know? What's everything they think they need to know? Where are they focused? So one of the first things I did is I created a blog post called 20 Steps to Start Car Hauling. And I learned about medical card and MC authority and DOT number and insurance and equipment and all these other things. And actually now we have a show called Live Carrier Advice. It used to be called DOT Compliance. That is a Wednesday show on the ATI Auto Business channel. And that's another thing. I have a channel. I don't have a show.
Right.
I have a channel of shows and information.
All on YouTube.
And everything's on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel. And I use social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to drive traffic to YouTube.
Right.
That's what I do.
So you've done something pretty unique, right? But at the same time, you've done 20 years ago exactly what the Gary V's of the world, they are telling people to do. Take
Funny
what you
you
love
mentioned-
doing, take something that you know and create content around it. So what do you tell the kid today that's like, man, I'm in this industry and I sell houses. Why would I start making content about houses, right? That seems silly. It seems like everybody already knows this stuff, right? What do you tell that person today that is in what seems to be a saturated market, right? Or a non-sexy market? Auto logistics, last mile auto logistics sounds like the most boring topic on the planet to me.
Totally.
So, and I'm scratching my head like, how do you even come up with that much content for that? But you seem to do it on an industry that seems super boring. And other people think that their industry is boring because they're in it, right? What do you tell that person and how to find that special piece?
It's a great question. And I almost took notes because I always write things down, especially during an interview. But normally I'm in your chair. All right. So there's a few things here. Number one, good job on mentioning Gary Vee. He's not my personal hero, but he really gets around, right? People know who he is. And you know what, Gary, did you know this about Gary is that in his early days, he had a wine YouTube show.
Yeah.
Might have been a channel, right? I don't know if everybody knows that. And he made a ton of content.
Yeah.
And this is one of the secrets is it's kind of like, I heard a show, something about 10,000 hours.
Yes.
Not until you put in 10,000 hours will you succeed. 10,000 hours. That is insane.
Right.
And so, when I think of an Olympian, right? An aspiring Olympic champion or, whatever, those are the only people I can think of that put in 10,000 hours. Now, what's frustrating is, Ken, when we feel like we put in 20,000 hours and we're still here, right? This is the frustration, but it's the concept that applies. You don't get to 10,001 and someone gives you an award. Now, the world may reach that. In 2100, everybody gets an award at 10,001 hours. We may get there, but today that doesn't work. So listening to people like Gary Vee is a really great idea. I like to watch shows like Shark Tank. I like to watch shows about entrepreneurs that struggle as well. We all got to find you got to find your juice. You got to find your muse and something that'll speak to you and keep you going during that 10,000 hours. But here's what's interesting is that ATI, you got to pivot. If you're not pivoting, you're dying. Now, I don't know. There's probably a better way to put that. But you will always be pivoting if you're paying attention. And by pivoting, it's as simple as adjusting what you're doing. So in ATI Auto Business, which was originally called Auto Transport Intel, but Intel Corporation didn't like that. Time to pivot.
Right.
Okay. That was a major pivot. But I was already pivoting before that because I learned that, number one, not because I don't drive and I don't load, man, I lost like half the audience right there. Truckers want truckers.
Right.
And I thought, well, you know what? I'm not a trucker and I'm not here to just talk about ramps and stuff. And that's the snooze button that you're hitting. Like, wow, what I'm talking about automotive business. This is interesting. I think it is. Snooze is that the automotive industry is full. When you think of automotive industry, what's the first thing you think of when I say automotive industry?
Oh, I think it's sports cars.
All right, perfect. Cars. That's it. That's the industry. Cars.
Right.
All right. So who sells cars?
Dealers.
Dealers. Perfect. Where did dealers get cars? I know this is hard, right?
The manufacturer, right? I guess.
Right. Perfect. I'm going to take over from here. Great. You did great. You get a star. All right. So there's new cars and used cars. Dealers sell both. Dealers get new cars from the manufacturer. Who are the manufacturers? Oh, there's about 19 major ones or whatever, OEMs. And I should know the answer cold, but I don't. There's a lot to know.
Right.
Okay, wait, but not just in the U.S. They come from overseas. How do they come from overseas?
Your number's not off. I was just talking to a depot rep and said there's like 15 to 19 national real players of car manufacturers. So I was just with the depot rep last week. So
all right, cool. All right, well, they come on ships. They come from other countries. At what point are we going to focus? We're going to focus on North American used car market because this is where transportation does a lot of work. There are other transportation companies in other countries. There's ocean vessels. There's ports. There's auctions. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to include ports and auctions. We're going to include North America car manufacturers. We're going to include the 19,000 used car dealers in the United States. We're going to include 200 plus auto auctions in the United States. We're going to include, I don't know, upwards of 20,000 owner operators in the United States. I don't know how many trucks there are. There's a lot of equipment manufacturers that create trailers. And then you got semis and you got pickup trucks. There is a ton of stuff to talk about. And that is ATI Auto Business. Not to mention, I didn't even talk about all the changes in the news, digital auctions, EVs. Oh my gosh. There's so much. So what happened is I pivoted. I didn't just say auto transport. I said automotive industry as it relates to transportation. And what's happened is since I focus on all that, what I've learned is there's nobody else that really does that.
Okay. I have a neat little quip on your pivot.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And
cool.
In boxing, right? You're in the center line. Your target's the center line when you're moving forward, and you make a small pivot to get yourself off the center line, but maintain it on your target, right? So you're maintaining the same target, but you're just changing your position a little bit off the center line so that you can get a different angle at your target.
I love that analogy because I never like to say a word that somebody in the audience is like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Right.
I hate that. And that's why I'm also an educator. I mean, I want everybody to know if I said a word that you don't know, I want you to say, Jay, tell me what you're talking about.
Right.
Whether it's floor plan or whatever.
I think in business and in boxing, both small pivots are where you need to be. Very small changing and a back and forth. And then, sometimes you're going to get wider, but you got to figure it out. And then you're just always making those small adjustments, learning a little bit, making small tweaks, and then repeat, and then keep doing those things.
And you know what sucks about pivoting is sometimes you don't want to pivot, but you've been told you may need to.
Yeah. I've been there more times than not.
Yes.
And a lot of times if you don't pivot, what you end up doing is just getting knocked out.
Well, that's right. So you have to, that's what's hard about, maybe the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur, or, is that you have to be willing to take some punches and alter your, it's tough.
Right. I've
Which
told
goes
this story
against the
before.
whole point of being an entrepreneur, because you're the head of the spear. What's your story?
One of my previous bosses, and we still work together. When I worked for him directly, every 6 months, everybody in the company changed desks, cubes, offices, everything.
I love it.
And I'm like, and I go to him like, Brian, this sucks, man. This is so inefficient. We're taking time out of the days. It takes 2 or 3 days to pick up my desk and move to a different office, and then to get back in the flow and all this stuff. This is miserable. He's like, you just got to be okay with change, man. You'll appreciate this later in life. I was in my early 20s, and I'm like, this freaking idiot doesn't know what he's doing. Why is he making me do this? I'm losing precious hours of programming and work and stuff. And
that's pretty brilliant. You actually just reminded me, as part of your question, here is a piece of information. Things are always changing, obviously, but it's that change that affords a new opportunity that didn't exist before. So there may be, and this is where we have to watch. We can't rest on our laurels. What's a laurel? I have no idea. So
lazy morals?
Lazy morals, good.
I don't know. I made that up.
Not. I've never asked what a laurel is. First time ever. But there will be somebody in 10 years that actually, that's why I don't say car hauling as much anymore. I don't even know if car hauling will exist in 20 years.
Wow.
I know. And that right there, the rest of the truckers listening, left.
Right.
Yeah. This is actually one of the tough parts about the channel that I make, is I'm not telling anybody what they want to hear. This is a news channel.
Right.
Good news and bad news.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just say,
I'm going to ask you a hard question next.
Okay. But I have noticed in the past couple years, because nobody has to explain what happened in the past couple years. In 2017, lots of people said, why are you making a YouTube auto transport channel? Nobody says that today. Right. And in fact, several of the owner operator trucker car hauler guys are watching and going, I better watch this channel. And they're emailing us. Thank God for your channel.
That's awesome.
I know.
Thanks for watching today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. Get to work.